Lopes fans, welcome in. My name is Brennan Williams, and this is Go Lopes Radio. We are here at a really exciting part of the season, guys. GCU coming off a big win on Saturday against formerly ranked Utah State, and now GCU gets the opportunity once again to take out the team atop the Mountain West as the San Diego State Aztecs come to town tomorrow night, Wednesday, 9 p.m. So a unique start once again. But guys, the good news: GCU back on FS1 again. Great for the university, great for the program, and just good for basketball. You know, it should be another good one. We know there's a storied history kind of in GCU's short time here with the Aztecs. So great to see another iteration of that, and that it is on national TV. So guys, today's show, we're going to talk through some of that history, some of the games in the past and kind of what happened. And then we are going to talk about this year's SDSU team and highlight a quick player. Again, just a unique kind of history between these two teams in a time where, you know, GCU comes to Division I pretty recently. Lots of home and home scheduled. And yeah, it's been a very favorable matchup for GCU. And one thing, guys, before we get into this, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, right? You know, GCU obviously had some success in the past against the Aztecs, but it's a new season. It's a new era of college basketball. I'm not saying not to expect good things, but, you know, guys, winning college basketball games is really hard. And I think when you kind of start expecting it, and it kind of can cheapen the process a little bit, all that goes into a win. You look at Saturday, you know, so much went into that. You know, we went through all the players, obviously all the work that goes into scouting. So much goes into it, and winning college basketball games is so hard. But I still think we can kind of look back on some of these games, and they're fun, you know, kind of little blasts in the past as well. So I think, guys, let's get into it. So we're not going to go over, there was a game played in the 79-80 season. GCU did win, ironically enough. We're not going to go into detail. We don't have a ton of details on that one, but where we are going to pick this up, guys, is kind of more in the modern era. And we're going to turn to, you know, the first iteration in that modern era, 2015-2016 season. Ironically enough, was my senior year at school. Lucky enough to travel to the game as a Havoc leader. This was a fun one. It was entertaining, an absolute rock fight. As if you recall, guys, GCU won 52-45. This one kind of came out of nowhere for the Lopes, without a doubt. Kind of the first signature win for Thunder Dan. And this was a Grandy Glaze, Keontae Vernon special. Keontae had a double-double. Grandy was also a factor down low. And then Dwayne also got to double digits with 11, which is crazy that GC had two guys in double digits when they scored 52 points. We know, guys, that San Diego State, they're really stout defensively. And if there's issues at times, it's on the offensive end. They can be a little anemic. And they only scored 45 points at home. You know, I remember Thunder Dan losing his mind post-game and just the excitement he had. And really a great moment for GCU basketball. And kind of, you know, I hate to say kind of that first moment, but maybe a lot of people, that might have been the first time they heard of GCU as a basketball program. A really good win out in Viejas, has to be called out. I know I mentioned went out there, but it was in Viejas, which is a really tough place to play, tough place to win. And GCU went out there and got it done. And I hate to say this one might be kind of the most against all odds or the most random. I got to be honest, when you go through it, I think so. This one, again, just kind of came out of nowhere. And yeah, the Lopes get it done for the signature win back in 2015, the 2016 season. So yeah, really exciting one. Again, my takeaway was just remembering Thunder Dan and the excitement he had post-game, just running through the arena, kind of getting that first signature win. Guys, the second half of the back-to-back next season was at GCU Arena. And they did it again, guys. The Lopes, they were led by Dwayne. And I think the other big call out there, guys, is they were also led by Oscar Freire. And obviously, you know, very tragic to have him pass away after the tournament run, after his final year at GCU, the impact he had on campus, all of that. And that game was really when you saw, oh my gosh, I can't believe we got this guy as a recruit. Obviously, he had some stars next to his name. He took a chance on GCU and Thunder Dan. And yeah, this was kind of the game where he, I hate to say, had his kind of a little bit of a coming out party, but he was truly incredible this game, guys. He's 5 of 8 from 3, 7 of 13 from the field, 3 steals, 6 boards. And then you add that in with what Dwayne was able to do. Wasn't super efficient from the field, but he got to the free throw line. He had 9 assists to go with 21 points. And GCU, they got it done again. back-to-back years. So they are, at this point, 3-0 against the Aztecs if you consider that game from 79 or 1980. And the next one, guys, this one was going to be really, really tough. The Lopes traveled to take on a top 10 SDSU team in 2019-2020. If you remember, this would be probably the worst GCU team of, quote, the modern era. We know that Thunder Dan would actually get fired at the end of the season. This is the season that ends in COVID. Now, all I've done is mention the GCU side of it. Guys, SDSU, with one of the best seasons, and really, if you're an SDSU fan, obviously COVID was such a tough time, but all you probably wanted to do was see what this team could do in the postseason. They only lost one regular season game. They did lose in the Mountain West Conference tournament game. Keep in mind, the Mountain West Conference tournament used to be early at this time, right? So they had already played it. Their season was done, and they were just waiting for everything to kind of finish up in the other conferences and then wait to see where they would play. But obviously the NCAA tournament would not happen. All the conference tournaments would get canceled that week. But guys, this one was not close. 86-61 on the road. And yeah, I just think the big takeaway was, if you're a Lopes fan, like, hey, maybe you get the beat down, but they were a really good team, and maybe they could go and do something special in the postseason, that SDSU team, and you could say, we got to play them. But at this point now, GCU's record is 3-1 against the Aztecs, and the Lopes, they get another shot, guys. They get another shot at this thing. The Aztecs come to GCU Arena, and this is in the 23-24 season. Obviously, the Aztecs just played in the title game the season before. They've got a ton of momentum. Brian Dutcher obviously flexing his muscles a little bit, showing that he is absolutely 100%, without question, the guy. And they came to GCU Arena, guys. It was loud. It was a whiteout, and the game would end in a court storm. This was a total group effort from the Lopes. Ray Harrison, Tyon, Gabe, and Simo all scored 15 points at least. Game was tied with 10 minutes left, and the Lopes would finish the Aztecs off pretty comfortably, and like I said, would end in a court storm. So, guys, there's 4 games that we just went over in detail in this modern era. GCU goes 3-1, 4-1 if you include the earlier game as well. But these two teams, it's weird that they haven't played in a conference together. GCU's so new to college basketball, and GCU's had a ton of success against them. It's really kind of unprecedented and strange, especially against a program that is really good and has had a ton of success. And GCU, in the past, they've kind of had their number. So I think it brings a little bit of juice to this matchup, without question, tomorrow night at GCU Arena. If you're the Aztecs, obviously, like I said, it's a new season, kind of a new time in college basketball. A lot of these guys obviously aren't going to maybe be super familiar with the history. Dutcher will certainly be, but can they overcome that, and can they kind of get the monkey off the back? And maybe it's not that big of a deal, right? Maybe the players have no idea about it, like I said, and they just come in and treat it like another game. But I think it's fascinating when you look at the history between these two programs. And will that have any weight? I would guess probably not, guys. This is a really well-coached team. This is a really a team with a ton of talent at SDSU, and I'm guessing they come in locked in, ready to go, playing a good brand of basketball. They're hot right now. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But again, I just think it's fun to do a little look in the past. With GCU basketball, we don't get to do that often from the Division I era, kind of look in the past and have past matchups and name some names, that sort of stuff. But we get to do that with the SDSU matchup, and I think that's pretty cool. So, guys, let's transition now. And we are going to talk about the present. Okay, SDSU right now, guys, just like that, they are sitting atop the Mountain West after GCU knocks off Utah State, clears the runway for them. They are a perfect 7-0, coming off a massive win at home against New Mexico. SDSU 47th in Ken Palm. And it's funny because you look at this season, and there's definitely a way you could say it's been disappointing. They have the early big hiccup to Troy. That was obviously kind of a main talking point. Troy going on that insane 2-game run between SDSU and USC does beat SDSU in double overtime. And then after that, San Diego State would play Michigan, who we now know is absolutely a wagon, and they would lose by 40. And at that point, you're thinking, man, Magoon Quath isn't back and healthy and looking good. Miles Bird has been struggling. Yes, they've got some depth, but you'd look at those 2 losses and you'd say the season's been a little disappointing, but they are playing well, guys. Their biggest kind of league road test, when you kind of compare road tests, it's Nevada. They won by 5. They looked ready for the moment. and they've started to kind of really look like a Brian Dutcher team. Obviously they get the win at home on Saturday against New Mexico, a really good New Mexico team, as GC fans absolutely know. So, you could say disappointing, but they're kind of rounding into form. There's a lot of season left. We know Brian Dutcher's a fantastic coach and that there's a ton of talent on this team. And I think we're starting to see them trend a little bit. And I think it's worth calling out. Their team profile, guys, like Dutcher always does, they're just an elite defensive team, 24th in the country defensively. When you look at their team profile on KenPom, they're turning teams over a ton. They're defending the rim. They just make life super tough. We mentioned, going through some of the history, these games are usually rock fights. That's how SDSU plays. They play really good defense, and then, they hope they have kind of that offensive pop kind of from a night to night. Someone can step up, and this is just an elite defensive team. They're one spot behind the Lobos for the best defense in the Mountain West, but I just think this is the scariest team, especially if Guath can kind of start to show anything, especially around the rim. This, to me, is the best defensive team. They have the pedigree. When you kind of look in the past, I think it's probably the most reliable kind of sort of program from a defensive standpoint. And they've had some guys step up and kind of fill in the voids with guys who maybe haven't played to their potential yet. And so this makes this a really tough test for GCU. You can't have one guy go in and try to take this game over. You're going to have multiple options. You're going to have guys hit shots when they have the opportunities. And if you don't, this Aztec team is going to absolutely swallow you up. It's a much different defense than Utah State. Utah State, they take a ton of risks. They go for steals. They press. They're doing kind of things in a chaotic fashion. But this San Diego State team is disciplined, much like that New Mexico team. They're going to be in their spots. It's going to be a group effort. There's going to be 5 guys together defending. And this is a really scary team and a scary matchup. Let's go back kind of preseason, talk a little bit about that. All the chatter was they've got 2 NBA guys, Magoon Guath, Miles Bird. Magoon Guath, lock him in for Defensive Player of the Year, no question. Miles Bird was picked as the Player of the Year in the Mountain West. And honestly, both have had pretty disappointing seasons. Other guys have had to step up. And I mentioned this, but guys, this is what makes them most dangerous. When you kind of start to look at them and the way they're trending, to have other guys step up and kind of carry the load while their 2, quote, stars have kind of sputtered out a little bit, haven't looked great, haven't looked comfortable. That to me says if those guys can start showing any of their real pedigree and their talent and get into any sort of form, the other guys are there ready to go. And they've got a ton of depth. They've got 11 guys. And yes, 11 guys playing at least 10 minutes. And they have done it by committee so far. They have a bunch of guys playing. The scoring is spread out. They have a bunch of options, a bunch of guys who are confident with the ball. They're not afraid to take shots. They've got true freshmen playing. They've got, old seniors playing. They've got a little bit of everything in between. And I think that's what makes them so dynamic. And they're led by BJ Davis, the junior who's in his 3rd year under Dutch. And he's just kind of slowly improved and they put the ball in his hands, and they did it against New Mexico. He was successful. Late in the game, they want the ball in his hands. He is a really twitchy, talented guard, 12 a game, 44, 88 splits. So he's been efficient, and he's just a guy they're going to go to in big situations. So I expect to see a lot of him, the ball in his hands, making decisions in GCU Arena. And he's just been really, really impressive. I think what makes this San Diego State team so tough, we mentioned with Dennis Evans and Utah State, right? It was such a curveball because if you're Utah State, you have no tape on Dennis Evans. You have no idea that he's even going to play. He comes in and he totally wrecked the game for the Aggies. I mean, they had no idea what to do. Super uncomfortable when they got in the paint. They were throwing up crazy floaters. They just had no idea what to do. And this just comes back to scouting, right? And how important it is in conference play and the challenge that comes with it. This SDSU team, because I mentioned they have 11 guys that play 10 minutes and they're so deep, GCU, they got to go really far down the sheet on this scout. Like, you've got to be ready for everybody because all of those guys can pop, all of them can score, and they can really impact the game in different ways. And so this is going to be a unique test for GCU because, it's not like with Utah State where you say, okay, we got Falsev, we got Collins, we want to talk a little Drake Allen. Let's talk a little Carson Templin who can set screens. This San Diego State team, you got to go 8, 9, 10 deep on the scout, and you've got to be ready for everybody because, Dutch, he's plugged and played guys. He's kind of seen who has it on certain nights and rode with them, and it's worked. And so if you're GCU, This is really a tough scouting test because you don't know who you're going to get. You don't know whose hands the ball is going to be in. You're going to see a lot of, like I mentioned, BJ Davis, but they have a ton of other options here. And I think that's what makes this, such a unique challenge. Something to keep an eye on is GCU ready when guys come in off the bench for San Diego State, kind of knowing what some of those guys are going to do. Our final call out. I mentioned Miles Byrd earlier. Guys, he might be trending. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. Obviously, he wasn't great kind of towards the start of the season, a little banged up, a little bit of the same story with the inefficiency, but he is slowly trending double digits in his last 6 games. He's averaging nearly 14 a game in that stretch. Big game against New Mexico. Keep your eyes on him if he's starting to really make that kind of stealth run for player of the year. We know that voters really like it when a team's close to the top, in first place, when it comes to that player of the year. And if you're Miles Byrd, sure, it hasn't been a dream season so far for you individually, but he's starting to play well. The team's having success. And if he can kind of still continue to have that success within their system and what they're doing, he could be a real stealth kind of candidate for player of the year there. And especially, he's been here. He's done that. He knows this Mountain West grind. He's played in these arenas. And something to keep an eye on is if he's going to start trending and really looking like the player we might have thought early in the season. That changes everything for this San Diego State team. They got a guy they can rely on who can really score, who's dynamic on the defensive end. He can get a ton of steals, get out in transition and do some stuff. So keep your eye on Miles Byrd. We're going to get a good idea if at GCU Arena, if he's really going to try to make this kind of run for player of the year. And if we might be seeing the guy we thought we were getting early in the season. Guys, that's it on our scout. A really quick one for you today. Kind of a fun pod. I love going through the history of those GCU SDSU games. We talked about this version of San Diego State, who they are. And then we talked a little bit of some of the guys they've got. But just know they've got a lot of options they can throw at this game. They're going to see what might work against this GCU team. Dutcher's going to scout this thing out and see who might work and who isn't a good option in this game. And I think it makes for a really good one. But 9 p.m., FS1, we love those linear games on national TV, guys. This is what it's all about. So get over to the Globe, get your butt in your seat, and be loud, guys. We saw what happened on Saturday. I thought the fans had a massive impact on the game. Utah State did not look comfortable. And I think if you're a GCU fan, you got to say, hey, we can do the same thing on Wednesday. You've got to protect home court in this conference. It is very vital. And GCU did a great job of that Saturday, and excited to see what happens tomorrow night. So, guys, that's it. We'll see you tomorrow night. Cheers.